The wheels are only ever driven by an electric motor, and that means that we can control the engine that's generating the electricity separately to the driving speed and the acceleration. But we've also added another technology, which is active noise cancellation. So very similar to the headphones that you use on the aeroplane, we have a speaker in the luggage room of the car that will play the inverse noise to the engine and cancel it out. So when you're driving around the city, the engine can start and stop, and you won't even notice it's happening.
Road safety for young people and questions over the future of cat management. Good morning, Sam Bradbrook in the southeast with ABC News. The South Australian Greens are calling on the government to go further with its pledge to make public schooling free. Here's political reporter Evelyn Manfield.
The state Labor government is offering free public schooling for primary and high school students from next year in a promise unveiled yesterday that'll cost taxpayers $300 million over 4 years. It's estimated to help 90,000 families. Greens leader Robert Sims says if Labor's going to copy them, they should also wipe other costs associated with school.
Excursions, uniforms, buying equipment.
The Liberals say reducing public school fees is welcome, but they've cautioned the devil is in the detail.
Police will run a new program in Mount Gambier Neck this week aimed at teaching hundreds of local students in years 10 to 12 the importance of road safety. The two-day event at Wollonda will include speakers with experience of road trauma, virtual reality technology and a live crash reenactment. Event coordinator Senior Sergeant Sue O'Connor says everyone, including drivers, passengers and pedestrians, shares responsibility for keeping roads safe.
They've got responsibilities if they're a passenger in a vehicle to not distract the driver and be responsible and be safe. As a driver, you're responsible for everyone else who's in that vehicle with you and for everyone else on the road. So we hope that the messaging that we showcase during the event makes them actually just take that second to think.
The Wattle Range Council says an online survey about the future of cat management in the region will help direct new bylaws. The council wants to hear from the community before March 24 about how cats should be managed, with plans to introduce new rules later in the year. Director of Development Services Emma Clay says cats, unlike dogs, are currently not required to be registered, making them hard to manage in the community.
It's not just we don't know how many cats are owned, but we don't know how many cats are feral. So introducing a cat bylaw or some sort of legal framework will help with us with being able to track cats and manage them.
In-home childcare operators say their sector is at risk of collapse unless it gains access to a government wage subsidy scheme to help long day care operators absorb the cost of pay rises. Here's National Education and Parenting reporter Connor Duffy.
The little-known part of the childcare sector involves an educator coming to the family home, and it caters to about 1,000 parents nationwide. The sector is already shrinking, and from today, educator pay will increase by 5%. The government is currently subsidising similar wage rises in long daycare centres. Nicole Morgan, the president of the Australian Home Childcare Association, says the government needs to expand access.
Without any support, that we know that we are going to lose a large cohort.
In a statement, the Minister for Early Education, Jess Walsh, said government reforms have lowered childcare costs for all families.
Newly released figures show Australia's diesel fuel sales have risen 48% in the past 15 years. The data by the Federal Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water also shows sales of E10, unleaded fuel and liquid petroleum gas have declined dramatically. Australasian Convenience and Petroleum Marketers Association Chief Executive Rowan Lee says the rise in diesel sales has been driven by the nation's love of online shopping.
Well, I'd say there's been a huge growth in home deliveries. So all those vans you see driving around, a lot of them are diesel. So there's a lot more of those vehicles on the road. I mean, in fact, the number of registered diesel vehicles has grown by over 1 million since 2021.
The new chair of the Green Triangle Forest Industries Hub says she's looking forward to increasing collaboration to better respond to challenges. Dr. Ruth Schubert has been named as the independent chair, having previously held roles in education and governance, both in the Limestone Coast and across the country. She says the Green Triangle has the opportunity to significantly contribute to research, which will help guide the broader industry forward.
We do have a shortage of wood fibre, so that's an important part of our work to provide that research, to work with our partners to produce that kind of research and policy advice.
The South Australian Electoral Commission has confirmed the ballots for the seats of Mount Gambier and MacKillop ahead of this month's state election. 11 candidates are running for the seat of Mount Gambier, which has been vacant after independent MP Troy Bell was sentenced to 5 years in jail on theft and dishonesty charges. Meanwhile, 9 candidates are running for the seat of MacKillop, including a sitting independent MP Nick McBride, who is also facing assault charges. Voters will head to the polls on the 21st of March. The Country Education Foundation says regional communities are being left behind, with data showing 4 in 5 students have to move away for higher education. Foundation CEO Wendy Mason says cost of living pressures, relocation costs, and mandatory unpaid work placements are increasing the gap between regional and metropolitan students. She says the Foundation's support of students looking to chase further education pays dividends for regional communities in the long term.
Really, it means that they return to communities, they're equipped, they're able to be an active member. We're really investing in potential that has a long run return.
New data from more than 10,000 workplaces shows while the gender pay gap is narrowing, there's still more work to do. National Work reporter Bronwyn Herbert has more.
The Gender Pay Gap report from the Workplace Gender Equality Agency puts a figure on the difference in earnings between women and men in the same workplace. This year's data covers 5.9 million people at businesses with more than 100 staff across both private and public sectors. Chief Executive of the agency, Mary Woolridge, says in the 3rd year of publishing the data, the pay gap is down 0.9% from last year.
The good news is the gender pay gap is coming down.
For every $1 a man earns, women on average earn 88.8 cents. Large differences in discretionary payments like performance bonuses remain a key driver of the gender pay gap.
A political expert says using South Australian political party websites to raise federal campaign funds defeats the purpose of the state's new donation bans. Laws banning political donations in SA were passed in 2024, preventing most candidates and political parties from raising funds for state campaigns. But parties are legally allowed to raise money in the state, provided funds are used only for federal campaign purposes. The director of the Australia Institute's Accountability Program and previous critic of the legislation, Bill Brown, says the influence through donations at any level remained a risk.
There is a danger that a private contribution that's made for a federal purpose runs the risk of having an influence on the state operations and decisions of a party.
Political parties contacted by the ABC confirmed they're all complying with the new SA legislation. A Limestone Coast potato farmer says he hopes predicted hot weather later this week will protect his crop after significant rainfall this weekend. Lockie Hyson grows processing, crisping and seed potatoes across the southeast, with crops now facing the risk of waterlogging after Naracoorte received 60.4 millimetres of rain on Sunday. He says he expects to lose some of his crop, but not as much as he could have.
Probably what's worked in our favour is that we didn't get a huge amount out of the system, so that's very positive. And also the weather we've got coming during the week is hopefully going to help dry things out a little bit. It was also a very gentle rain, so I think it had a bit of time to get away in some places.
A Mount Gambier woman has lost her licence after allegedly blowing 3 times the legal blood alcohol limit on Friday night. Police say the 50-year-old was stopped on Charles Street, Mount Gambier, where she provided a blood alcohol reading of 0.172. She's been reported for drink driving, issued a 12-month loss of licence, and will appear in court at a later date. Meanwhile, on Saturday afternoon, a 32-year-old Mount Gambier woman was arrested and charged with drug driving, stating a false name and details, and driving unauthorised. Police say she'll be issued with a 3-month loss of licence and will also appear in court at a later date. The candidates for the seat of Mount Gambier at this month's state election have outlined their priorities at a community forum last night. Samuel O'Brien has more.
6 out of the 11 declared candidates were at the Meet the Candidates event hosted by the Mount Gambier Chamber of Commerce. Candidates for Labor, Liberal, the Greens, One Nation, as well as 2 independents answered questions submitted by members of the community, touching on health, cost of living and the local economy. The participants were also asked about local issues including radiotherapy services, crime and effective representation in Parliament. Voters will head to the polls on the 21st of March.
The Wattle Range Council says about a third of the Beachport Caravan Park cabins have had their safety issues rectified after owners were banned from the sites over summer. The council identified concerns with about 50 semi-permanent units, with issues including the distance between buildings and electrical problems. CEO Ben Gower says those issues have been fixed at 17 sites. He says discussions between the council and the other owners are ongoing.
Navigating our way through each of those different issues and then working closely with each and every one of those site owners. It's taken a little bit of time for all of us to get our head around what needed to be required, and then also then communicating it quite clearly and working with those site owners to get that level of compliance.
Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers has written to the consumer watchdog to monitor fuel prices amid ongoing concerns over supply due to the war in the Middle East. Iran has vowed to attack any vessel trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, the world's busiest oil shipping channel, and key oil infrastructure in Saudi Arabia has been damaged by debris. Chief economist at AMP Shane Oliver says the supply chain disruption will likely cause a sharp increase in price at the Bowser.
Roughly speaking, if you go from where we were on Friday to where we might end up, we could see a $40 a barrel rise in oil prices. It always depends on where you start the calculation from. My calculation is that would add about 40 cents a litre.
Both major parties in South Australia are avoiding committing to an ambulance ramping target ahead of the state election. Evelyn Manfield reports.
Labor leader Peter Malinauskas swept to power 4 years ago on the promise he'd fix the ramping crisis, but since then the number of hours ambulances have spent ramped has shot up. In March 2022 it was about 2,700 hours. Now it's more than 3,600. Despite that, neither Labor or the Liberals will commit to a target of what they want hours to fall to. Since last election, ambulances are arriving at emergency call-outs quicker, but the goal of getting to priority 2 cases within 16 minutes 90% of the time is still far from being met.
The federal government says new data shows more than 2,000 home batteries have been installed in the Barker electorate under the Cheaper Home Batteries program. Launched mid-last year, the program makes it less expensive for people to install batteries at their homes and use stored solar energy at peak times. South Australian Senator Don Farrell says the program's extension to 2030 will allow more residents to take advantage of the rebates.
This battery technology sells itself, I think, and we want more people from the southeast to take up the option.
The new owner of South Australia's record-breaking bull sold near Kingston for more than $200,000 said the animal is the full package. Granite Ridge Velocity V42 was purchased for $235,000 by New South Welshman Herb Duddy last month, eclipsing the previous record of $150,000. Mr. Duddy says the bull's semen has attracted significant interest from breeding companies, including some overseas.
He's just about a complete bull, what I could see. Time will tell, but I didn't expect to have to pay that sort of money, but when I couldn't find other bulls to suit me, I decided to secure the bull.
A man has been fined at the Mount Gambier Magistrates Court for driving twice while disqualified and on drugs. Bill Lamond has more.
On the 6th of July 2025, police pulled over Brendan Robert Cook and found he was driving with an expired Tasmanian driver's licence. They performed drug and alcohol tests on him and he tested positive for methamphetamine and cannabis. Police then pulled over Mr. Cook on the 8th of November and discovered he was driving while under the influence of drugs and without a valid licence. In court, he pleaded guilty to both charges, highlighting he had since stopped taking drugs and is getting help to stay off them. Magistrate Kylie Schultz disqualified him from driving until July 2027 and issued him 2 $1,100 fines.
Limestone Coast students are learning about road safety as part of a program running in the region for the first time. Yesterday, students in years 10 to 12 from a number of schools took part in the Safer Journeys event, which continues in Mount Gambier today. Among the speakers was Robe's Lily Matthews, whose father died in a crash in 2022. Mount Gambier High School student Brady Locke says the session had greater impact than a road safety ad.
You're like, oh yeah, righto, cool. I know that now. But then it's like they're here and like they can see you and they can see how you react to them. When their eyes meet yours and you see their grief, it really hits you, I can tell you that much.
5 new aircraft will join the Royal Flying Doctor Services fleet to be used for rescues in South Australia and the Northern Territory. The not-for-profit medical service says the new Pilatus PC-12 aircraft is the first aeromedical fit version of the plane in the world. It says it marks the biggest upgrade of the Royal Flying Doctor Service aircraft in more than a decade. South Australia's recent flooding events have given the State Emergency Service the chance to use trial drone technology to warn drivers about rising floodwaters in real time. Using drones fitted with speakers to communicate with motorists, the SES says it's a surprising but effective technique which can save lives. The waterproof drone can speak directly to drivers through their windows, warning them of the dangers ahead. SASES Chief of Staff Darren Halliday says it's the first time talking drones have been used during an extreme weather event in SA and has been immensely helpful.
We've had significant challenges over the last couple of days with motorists entering floodwaters, causing 8 or 9 swiftwater rescues over the weekend. So this type of technology with direct instruction to people considering that point of life and death when they may enter floodwater has definitely saved lives.
Kingston District Council says new owners are rebranding the Cape Jaffa Anchorage development to Solace Bay. The multi-million-dollar development was initially approved in 2006, with expectations the town's population would grow to as many as 2,000 residents. But since then, the area has faced issues including a lack of development and infrastructure. The council says it expects to work with the new development to achieve well-planned, staged developments that bring benefits to the community. A new Australian study has found the average number of moles on children's skin has halved over a 25-year period. It's coincided with successful sun safety campaigns, as Emma Pollard reports.
Scientists have credited the 1980s jingle and other sun protection measures with findings published in the British Journal of Dermatology. A long-running study involving almost 4,000 12-year-old twins and their siblings found the average mole count fell dramatically between 1992 and 2016. Professor Nick Martin from Brisbane's QIMR Berghofer says the number of moles a person has is the most important risk factor for melanoma.
At last we've got a good news story.
The study projects it could lead to a 4-fold drop in lifetime melanoma risk.
A Mount Gambier woman has received a suspended sentence after spitting on a police officer in Mount Gambier last year. Josh Bryan reports.
Kaylin Marie Gordon appeared by video link at the Mount Gambier Magistrates Court on Wednesday for sentencing on charges of disorderly behaviour, assault and failing to comply with bail. The court heard early in the morning of June 29, 2025, Gordon called police to respond to an altercation with another person. Officers tried to move Gordon on and she became verbally abusive, yelling obscenities before being arrested. She then spat at a police officer, hitting them on the lower jaw, neck and chest. Magistrate Kylie Schultz gave her an 18-month good behaviour bond with supervision for 12 months.
The Public Service Association says regional inmates are refusing medical transport to the Adelaide Remand Centre because of its reputation for frequent assaults. It's calling on the state government to return the prison to public hands, claiming private operator Serco was unable to meet staffing targets. The PSA says at least 14 guards have been assaulted since December. President Anthony Cook says remand centre prisoners aren't learning proper protocols.
The prisoners that are coming out of the remand centre, they're not learning how to conduct themselves as a prisoner. Basic things like making your bed in the morning, standing by your door when you're unlocked. They're just very basic prison regimes.
Corrections Minister Rhiannon Pearce and Serco both say the centre's staffing levels are appropriate. An Adelaide University researcher says a skin check program visiting the southeast this month will also train local nurses to identify skin cancer early. Pop-up clinics will be at the Mount Gambier RSL on the 17th and 18th of March before heading to the Southeast Field Days and Keith Show later in the month. Project lead Dr. Kim Gibson says teaching regional nurses to detect potential problems could be life-saving.
We go around to agricultural and pastoral field days and provide screenings, and whilst that is good, we then leave the community and the problem doesn't change. Our philosophy is that by training local nurses, these skills can be sustained.
An ambulance worker of 27 years says the role teaches lifelong skills and provides an opportunity to give back to the community when needed the most. The South Australian Ambulance Services are recruiting volunteers in places like Penola, Robe, Port Macdonald and Keith. Team leader Wayne Daniel says the service and volunteers are vital in regional areas.
Without volunteers in these sort of towns, if you're in dire need of an emergency service, then you may have up to an hour and a half before a vehicle is available. So by people volunteering for their community, it means that people can get a quicker response when they need it.
The president of the Coonawarra Vignerons Association says this year's vintage season will start a few weeks later than expected after a cooler and wetter spring. The association had its vintage launch on Wednesday, bringing the community together ahead of picking for white wine grapes due to start in the next fortnight. Daniel Redmond says the later start of the season will not change the quality of wines, however some varieties perform better than others.
Coonawarra is famous for Cabernet, and I think late ripening Cabernet, you get moderate alcohol, some lovely ripe tannins, and I think these later season Cabernets can be really, really, really smart.
After this, there is no turning back. You sip the red can, the story ends. You sip the black can, you enter dreamland, and I show you just how good the truth can taste. Max Taste Challenge.
In sport, Glenelg's Limestone Coast talent are hoping for a strong showing in front of a home crowd as the State League football comes to Mount Gambier. The Tigers will take on the VFL's Coburg in a rare interstate pre-season matchup at Melseed Park tomorrow. It'll be a homecoming for several local products in Glenelg's squad, including dual premiership player and vice-captain Matthew Allen. He says it's an important opportunity for the club to strengthen its connection with the region.
Just excited to be able to also bring, the boys who have been based in the city as well down to the zone and just, I suppose, have a bit more of a presence in a part of the state where we've had so many players come from for Glenelg.
Across the southeast, this is ABC News.
Yeah, give me that happy wash.
Scratch-free guarantee.
Make me feel like a limousine. Happy wash, happy car at OTR.